I'm John, and with me is a man who is on this quest with me. Is he a man or is he more of a boy? More of a skater boy? I would never say see you later boy. It's Bryan Quinby.
I did want to be a skater boy. Well, okay. In 5th grade, I wanted to be a skater boy. In 6th grade, my friend said bad things about skaters. And I was like, I would never be a skater. You know
and then
what I
that
mean?
was your opinion on skaters for the rest of your life?
For a long time. And then, in the 2000s, I started dressing like them since that was like the thing to do back then.
Well, yeah, all the Deftones guys dressed like that.
Yeah, like DC shoes and all that shit.
Dickies,
big
windbreakers.
Yeah, I wore a lot of that. So I did dress like them in the 2000s. But
yeah,
I was never going to be good at it. I don't think. Like, I guess I
could have been good. I think I could have been good because I'm a pretty good athlete, but I was too scared. I have a very low pain threshold, and I was too much of a wuss to actually want to skate. So I think that's why I got so good at Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, because that was just sort of my window into like, man, if you were a good skater, this could have been you.
Yeah.
But
that's why I'm good at Kirby. That's why I'm really good at Kirby. I like to suck things in and then shoot them out of my mouth. I always thought I'd be really good at sucking.
Yeah, Bryan, what do you like to suck in and spit out of your mouth?
Big fucking cummy cocks. Is that what you expected?
No, that's obviously not. That's why I'm laughing really hard and I couldn't talk for 5 seconds.
But I mean, I think like I am very uncoordinated anyway. Like, I think like if I was going to be something athletic, it would have 100% had to be football. And it would have had to be like one of the like defensive players or the line, right. Just something where it's like all you have to do is run into somebody else.
Yeah,
that's the only. And I was never really big as a kid or anything, so I couldn't.
You're really skinny in the old in your old new metal days. You were a slender man.
Yeah, so it was like I think if I had to be an athlete, skating was way out of the question. My pain tolerance, though, I think is not in question. I'd be fine with falling.
I didn't have the right mentality for that. I just remember, I moved across the country from Ontario to BC in grade 9 when I was 13. And I remember there was this girl in my grade 9 class that I had a crush on. And I think she had a crush on me too. But I was also too much of a wuss to do anything about that. And then I remember she would tell me about her like hooking up with this skater guy. And in my eyes, like coming from the gifted program and being also like a massive fucking nerd, I thought of skaters as like, oh, they're just dumb. They're just like dumb, kind of like dingy, not jocks, like dingy guys. Like I was just
burnouts.
Like, oh, burnouts. I was like, you're hot, and I want to be with you, and I'm like smart and I dress well. I was not dressed well, but in my mind, that's what I'm thinking. No. Like, and this guy looks like shit. This guy's fucking smoking weed, and he, and then you grow up and you're like, oh yeah, like I understand a lot of why she had no interest in me, or I shouldn't say no interest in me, but like, yeah, nothing ever happened between us. But I remember that was sort of my like, maybe I want to be a skater, but, yeah, I just knew that I would have never been able to handle the the constant falling and pain management, and I think I've told this story on Blocked Party before, but I don't think I've told it on this pod of like the worst own I ever got in my life. Cause I used to skateboard, but I would just use it as a method of transportation. I never, I could ollie up the curb, but that's it. So I used to skate. Starting in grade 12, I guess, I started skating to school. And then when I went to university, I would skateboard around campus and stuff. And so I was in grade 12 and I walked by a group of skaters, and one of the skaters who was younger than me in grade 11 was like, hey, do you know how to use that thing? Just as I was walking by. And I was like, oh my God.
Well,
and it was like
funny.
right after I had bought it. And I was so nervous to buy it because like I didn't want to be a skater. Like I had no interest in like going to a skate park or like skating around and like grinding rails and shit. I just only wanted to use it to get around because I lived like a 10-minute walk from my school. So I was like, oh, if I could cut that time in half, do something enjoyable, skate to school, that'd be a pretty good place to be. And then I was so in my head, like, oh, I'm going to buy this skateboard. People are going to make fun of me for trying to be a skater, even though I'm in the IB program and all this stupid shit. And then it was like maybe
irritable
a week.
bowel program.
Yeah. International Baccalaureate. It was like an advanced.
Okay. I sorry, I had to cut you off there. I thought
it's
you were
okay. You can
bragging
cut me
because you
off.
were in the diarrhea program.
I mean, I also have been in the diarrhea program for many years now.
Dan's been in it for Dan has a fucking a PhD in diarrhea.
Yeah, Dan's actually a two-way member, both diarrhea and puking. He's got them both going. He's got a special.
Puking's not bad.
Yeah,
puking's pretty cool. Like,
yes, Brian, we know about your stance on puking, but anyway,
I agree with you on that. By the way, Brian,
I was God, Dan, don't encourage him. But I was like a week into like owning this skateboard, and then this kid said this to me, and I was like, fuck. God damn it. You know, I felt I was so fucking owned. It was just like, because I wasn't even that good at using it yet. And I was just like, fuck me. But then I persevered and I kept using it. And then, it was a great way to get around campus when I was at university.
It's a dog shit mode of transportation. For real. Like, skateboarding
it's better than walking. It's fun. Skateboarding is fun. You
didn't have a bike?
I took the bus
to scooter?
I wasn't going to bring a bike on the bus all the way to Vancouver.
How long was the trip? I mean, you could have rode the bike, cut out the bus.
Hour and 15-minute bus ride, about 45 minutes by car.
Jesus, you went to school far away. I went to school right down the street.
6 years I commuted that long.
Riding a skateboard is such a funny mode of transportation because it is, I mean, it's exhausting. Number one.
Yeah, which is good.
You can't, if you could fall off of it if you hit a fucking pebble on the street.
Yeah, I broke my collarbone longboarding.
Yeah, well, longboarding I think makes a little more sense. I have one of those in the basement because Gwen said I want to be a longboarder.
How long that lasts?
Rode it twice. Rode it twice. Decided she didn't want to be a longboarder. But I have one in the basement. I never even tried it because I'm afraid now of what happens if I get on wheels. Although, I mean, if I had to say what
you're afraid of biking too?
Well, I just don't like biking. If I had to say what I was good at, I did rollerblades and roller skates. But I never lived in a time where you could go around in roller skates and people wouldn't just totally goof on you.
Yeah. No,
you had
there's
to be
no
alive
chance.
in the 70s. You had to be like old, like 18 in 1973.
Totally. Well, I played hockey, so I was always I'm a good skater. And so rollerblades always made sense. But the problem with rollerblades is, yes, number one, you get mercilessly made fun of. Number two, pardon me, is like you can't carry them around. Like at least with a skateboard, you can carry it around. Like I'd go into my class and I would just like leave it at the back of the classroom, or you could even have it at your feet. Like it's not a skateboard is not it's it's heavy, it's a bit cumbersome, but it's not a barrier. Like the annoyance of carrying it does not overwhelm the having of it. Whereas with rollerblades, like those things are so heavy. They don't fit in anything. There's no backpack that fits rollerblades. So you'd have to carry rollerblades around all day. Like it just, they're not a good method of transport for that.
We had some in the back seat of our car because I would rollerblade. Me and Katie would go to like trails and rollerblade the trail just for fun,
Yeah, sure.
And we did it a few times. So we had them in the car and we were out.
So that's fine.
Yeah. And we were out getting fucked up one night and I wasn't drinking because I don't drink.
Right.
But
Katie
we were
was
driving. Oh yeah, she was shit faced, but I didn't have my license. But I have my temps, which is you can drive with another licensed driver in the car.
Okay.
And so I'm driving home from this thing to drop her friend off, and we get fucking pulled over by the police, and I'm the only sober fucking person. Well, I'm high on weed or painkillers or something, but at that time, but no, I was basically sober.
Right.
You know,
yeah.
sober
For
as
you,
a
that's
judge, as they
sober,
say.
basically.
Percocets.
Yeah.
Just 5 or 6 Percocets, you know, that's sober as a judge. It fucking keeps me going, you know. I just lock in. So we get pulled over, and he pulls me out of the car, and he's talking to me. It's a shitty car. It's a 76 Nova. Sure. And it's loud, and it's shitty looking. It's rusting and falling apart. It was Katie's car. She got it for $500. And so the cop pulls me out, and I talk to him. And I'm like, he's like, so you have your temps? And I'm like, yeah. And he was like, so who's the licensed driver? And I, you know, this is my girlfriend in the car. This is her car. I'm driving her home. And I would lean as far as to say that it's not within the spirit of the temps.
Right, because she's in no state to help you if you're driving poorly. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was, I don't think it really acts in the spirit of temps, but it's legal. So he can't bust us for it.
Sure.
He's like, just wait here. And he goes to the car, and he's like, you're the licensed driver to Kate. And she's like, yep. And he's like, can you come out here, please? She fucking got out of the passenger side and fell down a hill. And then stood up and was like, yeah, I'm good. I'm fine. And the guy's like, okay. And he had said, hey, is there anything in the car I should know about? They say that, like, just asking if there's drugs or weapons in the car.
Yeah, guns. I got a shit ton of guns in here.
Well, that's not as bad in the United States as having drugs. But
I know.
He goes like, do you have any? Katie's frazzled. She gets up, and he goes, do you have anything in the car? And her answer for people that get pulled over, yes or no. Just the answer, yes or no. You know what I mean? And she fucking goes into, well, there's a Sprite bottle in the back seat, 2 pairs of rollerblades, because me and my boyfriend like to rollerblade. And she started naming everything in the fucking car. And I was just standing there like, just say no. There's he's not asking if there are rollerblades in the car.
Is there anything in there I should know about? Well, me and my husband did go on a nice little rollerblade the other day. Have you been over to the trail? It's beautiful.
But I as a kid at 12, 13 years old, there was a skating rink in Columbus that you could they did all night skate from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m.
Oh.
And it was on Friday nights, and there were a lot of girls there. And obviously I wanted to be there. It was like a rotating thing. All night skate was one week, but then they did 8 to 2 in the morning, then 8 to midnight, then back to all night skate or whatever it was. And we would go to all night skate, and I would just skate all fucking night. Like, you're supposed to be hanging out with girls and stuff. I would just go smoke 10 cigarettes and then be like, let's go skate. Like, let's do some tricks. Let's go backwards. Like, so I ended up actually getting decent at roller skating. I don't know where I'm at now with it, but I was like able to skate backwards and do the little spinny around and stuff like that. And, you know, it was really cool because it was a place where they let 12-year-olds smoke cigarettes all night.
I don't know what world, like the world you grew up in is so different from my world in many ways, in some big ways, but then just in some sort of like smaller ways like that. Just like, oh yeah, I went to an all-night roller rink so I could smoke cigarettes because they didn't care if I smoked.
And get high. We would get high before we got there, but you weren't allowed to go outside once you came in. So it was just whatever we could get in our bodies before we got
you got in there. Yeah.
Yeah. But there was a pool hall in my neighborhood.
I used to play pool.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty good at pool.
I'd do that. Like we'd go to the pool hall in my neighborhood for sure.
There was one in my neighborhood where if you brought a note from your parents, they'd let you smoke at 14 years old.
That doesn't even make sense.
They
I got this note from, like, whose parent is writing a note? It's like, like 99% of those notes are not real. Like, what is the like? What parent is just like, yeah, whatever, just fucking let him smoke? Who gives a shit?
They would take your picture and put it next to the letter from your parent in like a little book. And if anybody had any question of why this young kid is smoking, they could go back and look at the book and he's okay to smoke. Actually,
that is mental. That is fucking mental. And that's not even real. It doesn't even matter if your parents write you a note. That's not legally binding that you're then allowed to smoke because your parents wrote you a note. That's wild. I'm trying to remember the name of the pool hall we used to go to, because I remember it was very funny. Like, I grew up in a very, white collar town, very affluent. My family was strictly middle class, but the neighborhood itself was very affluent. And there was a pool hall there, and it was like the most tame pool hall like you could possibly imagine. But I remember my dad just having like the biggest, because in his mind, pool hall meant like a smoky opium den where, people are carrying weapons inside pool cues at all times. And just like, and it was literally like, I grew up in a neighborhood where that doesn't exist. Like, it just simply doesn't exist. And so I remember the first few times I went, my dad had this big issue, like, oh, you're going to the pool hall, like, come on, or whatever. And then it was just like, after a while, he didn't care, but because nothing ever happened. But I remember it being like a big fight. And I was older too. It wasn't like I was, 13 or something. Like, I would have been 17 or 18 and like going to the pool hall, because we would go because they had a snooker table. Like, I had a pool table in my house, but they had a snooker table. So me and a friend got into snooker for a while. So we would go there and play snooker.
Of course you got into snooker.
No, fuck off, Brian. You got into smoking cigarettes and doing roller skating, and I got into snooker. Drinking Jones soda and playing snooker.
If you played snooker at the Quarter Flash game room, that probably wouldn't go well for you.
That would have been like rollerblading. That would have been like rollerblading. The same thing.
Ours was called Quarter Flash because everything was a quarter, and they had Mortal Kombat 3 there. That's honestly why I spent most of my time there.
Right. I think it was called
where you could play Mortal
Crazy
Kombat
Eights,
3
maybe. I want to say Crazy
That
8.
sounds like a pool hall.
I know it does, but I for some reason I don't think that's right.
Shooters? Was it called Shooters?
That's a good name. No, it wasn't called Shooters. It wasn't called Shooters.
There was one in every town, I think.
It's called Shooters. Yeah.
I mean, pool hall is like kind of I think because my parents were a little weird about it too. I don't want you hanging out there. And it's like, I don't care what you want, first of all. But, it was next to the grocery store.
Sure.
And when my dad would go to the grocery store, if he saw us in the window, when we came home, he never would go in there. I think he was afraid of everybody in there. But when we'd come home, he would be like, I saw you at the Quarter Flash today. And it's like, I'm sorry, brother, but I'm going to be there every day. That's what I'm going to do.
You called your dad brother?
Yeah. Well, I wish. It's a safe space. I can smoke there. There's a bunch of juvenile delinquents.
Yeah, you may not know this, Dad, but you actually wrote me a note telling me I'm allowed to smoke there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was that my dad looked at it, I think, as in like, if I was a teenager, they wouldn't accept me at this pool.
Right.
You know what I mean? Where it's like, my dad is like such a dorky dude that I think he thought I was at risk anytime I was in the pool hall. But I mean, to be completely honest about this, I was probably a decent part of the risk for several other people at the pool hall.
Right.
That's why I always
you were the kid the other parents were worried about.
Yeah, because it was so crazy. I had this friend that lived in my same neighborhood. And his mom said, so he lived by a school called Dunlow Elementary School. And I lived by Asbury. And it was a 15-minute walk to get between those two places. Maybe
Sure.
25-minute walk. It was very not far. And I remember one day he was like, my mom doesn't want me coming over here by Asbury and hanging out. And it was like, why? And he's like, because she said there's a bunch of bad people over there doing crime and shit. And I was like, just tell her it's us. We're the fucking bad people doing the crime. Like, you don't have to worry about anything.
Don't worry, Mom. I have a gun. I'm good. I'm doing crime.
Well,
no one's going to
it's like-
bother me because I got a fucking gun, Mom. Shut up.
It's like there's all these car break-ins over there, and it's like, no shit there are. We're doing it. We're breaking into the fucking cars. It's not somebody coming in from out of the neighborhood.
I got some
swear to
news.
fucking
I got
God.
some news for you, Mom. I'm breaking into the cars, Mom. I got some news.
No,
Fuck,
I
leave
wouldn't
me
want him
alone.
to do that. But if he just said like, "Oh, you don't have to worry about my safety. Those are my friends that are doing that stuff." You know what
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean? And like, somebody broke into the school and stole their PA system. Yeah, no shit, we did. We stole their PA system in the middle of the night. We broke a window and we climbed into school. Don't worry about us. We're fine. We're not going to be victims of crime. I promise. If anything, we'll be victims of police.
yeah.